Hi, this is Lori and welcome to my series on adventures in soldering. This is part 3 of the Make Your Uno kit. In this episode we're going to be soldering the audio Synthesizer Shield. I always include this quote because even though I'm getting a little more experienced, I'm still pretty new to being serious about soldering, and I don't necessarily know the best ways to do soldering. I'm experimenting, trying to learn what works for me. So I just want to say, if I can't be a good example, then I'll just have to be a horrible warning. Well, we're now ready to do the Synth Shield on this Make Your Uno kit. And this is a little less intense than the Uno soldering that we did last time. But still a fair number of things need to get put on here. And we'll also incorporate our little speaker and get it all connected up. All right, we have a couple resistors to put in, so let's check them out. We'll see what they are. And that's a 10 ohm. And that one's going to go right there. And then this one should be the other resistor we need. And it's a 100 kilo ohm resistor, and that one's going to go right there. Alright, so we'll get our meter out of the way, and we'll go ahead and put that one in. Like so, and flip it over, do the bend back, and then I'll put the 10 in as well. I'm really excited to finish up this kit. I think it's going to be, I didn't get that one in very good, did I? There we go. There. Alright, that looks pretty good. And got our iron heating up. Turn on our smoke absorber. A little tin. There we go. And we'll get it soldered up. Go. Pop these up, and check and make sure they're in all right. They look good. And go ahead and flip them off. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, next up is the amplifier chip. There it is, and we've been learning that we got to match the notch with the notch, and just bring it up here so we can see it. There we go. And you can see the notch right there. So it'll go in like this, and we want to be careful. Try to get it in there, and let's flip over so all the legs are through. And I'm going to use some of my tape. Make sure it stays in while I'm soldering it. There we go. I think that'll keep it tight. And we'll solder that. All right. That's pretty good. And I'll do the corners and check and make sure that I've got it good. That was not enough. And a little bit more here. There we go. Let's make sure it's in there and it's not cockeyed. Yeah, that looks great. So I'll finish that up. Yeah, finish that, bring it a little closer so we can take a look. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And take that off. And yeah, we got that nice and flush with the surface. Okay, next up is a couple of capacitors. Let's bring them up so we can see, get the camera to focus on them. That will go here and here. So we'll start with this one is got a polarity to it, so we'll check and see that the negative leg, which is the shorter, and also the one that shows the little negative sign on it, goes in that direction. So I'll put the positive through and get the negative into that other hole. Push it down, and I'm going to bend it a little bit like that. That should keep it in. And then the other one, it doesn't matter which direction we put it, so we'll slide that in. And now we'll also bend this one back. And we'll just check and make sure we've got them kind of nicely down, and we'll get those soldered in. Get that onto the surface. Try that again. There we go. There we are. Alright. We'll just clip these off. And we'll have that part done. There's one more big capacitor that goes on here in the middle, and it gets bent over. I've never done that before, so that'll be a new thing. So it goes right here, and you can see it's kind of outlined because we're going to put it in and then bend it over. So we'll come back and do that one. Okay, I forgot there was another little capacitor that we need to put on, and it goes right here. So we'll put that one through, get that one mounted in first. It goes flush. And we'll go ahead and bend that back so it's nice and tight. That's that one. And then the big one that we're going to lay over goes this way, and this white side is the negative side. So again, this is a good size one. And there's our negative side. So we'll put that in, and it said to push it through, but to leave, don't push it all the way down. Leave some room so that we can do the bend. So that's a little tricky. And so I'm going to leave about that much room, and it's not really going to bump into anything, I don't think so. I don't know whether that left enough. Let's try to put up just a little bit more. And maybe that much. Hopefully that's enough to bend over. Alright, so I'm going to solder this one first, and then I'm going to try to get this one to hang straight up and down and be able to bend it. Alright, let's get going. So we'll do the simplest one first. Okay, got that in. And then I'm just going to do one of these and put just a little on there. And then I want to take a look at what's our status here. And I think that'll bend over. So I'm going to see how high I have it. I'll go ahead and finish it up. I'm going to do this side, put some on. Alright, there we go. And I'll put a little more on this side. Okay. Let's see where we stand. Alright, that one's in good. And let's see if we can bend it over. Well, I might not have left enough to go all the way down. Maybe I can give it a little bit more. Oh, yeah, there it goes. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Okay, it's time to put the potentiometers in for the synthesizer, and there's 6 of them. And the instructions suggest doing one at a time. And I think that might be a good idea. And they're not going to stay if I rotate them over. Now, it'd probably be easier if I did it flat to the surface. But I think I'll just tape them down. And I could do multiple ones at a time. But I'm going to tape one and show it, and then I'll probably streamline the process a little bit as I do the rest. Alright, so that at least hold it in place. And we'll solder it, and then I'm only going to solder one leg and get it flush, and then you know, make sure that it's pretty nice and flush. So let's turn that on first. I think I'm just going to do one of these legs here. I'm going to feed in the solder here. I'm not going to feed a ton in. I'm going to take a look at it and make sure I've got it flush. So I'm going to kind of tilt it up and just reflow this a little bit, make sure it's good and flush. Then I'm going to let go and then let go. And yeah, that worked well. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of these done. See in here. And probably put a little bit more in here too. Yep, a little nuts there, but yeah, that worked. Alright, I think that approach worked. I'll pull it out just so we can take a look at this one, and then I'm gonna production line the rest. But yeah, I got it nice and flat. Yeah, so that idea of you know, doing one and getting it going, I think that's a good strategy, and I'm gonna keep up with that strategy as I do the rest of these. Okay, I finished them up. I put them all on and taped them down, and then did the reflow on the single leg, and I think I got them pretty flush. I've done a little better on one or two, but by and large, I think they're in there pretty good. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think they look pretty good. All right, yeah, I've definitely come a long way in doing that. Well, now I think we're just going to put some headers on, and then I think we're close to being done. Okay, my excitement to work on this board, I clipped it away from here. And I should have kept it all together because it was intended to, you mount the speaker on and then you could solder this without having it in two pieces. So that was a mistake on my part. I should have kept it on the skew here. But yeah, I managed to get this on, and I taped it down to hold them in place. And you can see here that we got the black and the red in the right spot. And I've taped them through, so we'll solder them right on like that. And I mean, I just thought that the mount didn't work, but anyways, didn't need to do that until the end. But now I see what they were after. So my bad, but I think I've got it. All right. Feed in some solder here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And a little better grip on this. Alright. There we go. Now I'll do this one. Go through. Make that down just a little bit more. Oh, that looks pretty good. So, yeah, I think that's okay. And I'll trim the other side a little bit. And when this gets all mounted together, it'll be fine. It won't need any strain relief in particular, because it'll all be mounted nicely. So yeah, I like that. That looks pretty good. So as I was flipping this over to clip off the extra on this side, I went ahead and put some more solder on this side too. So I think it's really well soldered now. So there's a little on both sides, and I think that looks pretty good. Well, I forgot to press the the record button. It happens. So what I did was I did this corner and this corner, and then I wanted to make sure it was good and done and nice and flush before I went and soldered a whole bunch of the other pieces. And that seems to be pretty good. So I think it's going to come out all right. So I'll finish up and come back with the results. Okay, got them all soldered. So we should be able to take this off. Yeah, there we go. And we got our headers on. And I think that went pretty good. I tried to put a healthy amount since this might get plugged in and out several times. So hopefully give it a little strength. But yeah, that gets us, that's all the soldering. Now we'll just put this whole thing together in the kit and start trying out the synthesizer. Okay, you can see I have everything together. Now, as I mentioned in the very first episode, I made some decisions that impacted putting this all together. And the main decision that impacted it was the fact that I separated the Uno. I'll just take it off here. The Uno and the Synth Shield board from these sprues. And, you know, I just kind of didn't think about it. They really were intended to stay connected. Now, I'm not unhappy with that decision because I came up with a solution, which was, even because I wanted to put it together and have it in this little, you know, configuration that they intended. I just put a piece of cardboard here underneath. I hot glued it in and screwed it on so that these don't fall through when I have them in there. But what it does allow me is it allows me to have the Unos that I can pull out and use for other purposes, because it's a regular Arduino Uno and can be used, you know, separate from this Synth Shield. So by having it loose like this, it's easy to get in and out, and I don't have to unscrew everything or, you know, that sort of thing to get to it. So I'm okay with that. So I didn't show putting all this together, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You just have these, you know, extenders here, and you screw everything in to make the little housing. And you do have to clip free the little cover here for the speaker and put it on. The other thing I mentioned at the very first episode, when I got to this step, I added this into the first episode, was that you may not want to use these headers. You might want to use headers that go both below and above, so that you could connect things into the unused pins, because this shield does not use all the pins on our Arduino, and if we wanted to add other things to this synthesizer, we certainly have a lot of pins left, but the way that this, if you had everything clipped in and the way you connect it, and if you use these headers, you cannot access them. So putting a different set of headers here would be smart, and it would allow you to connect it. Now, I didn't think about that until I had found this site by Do-It-Yourself Electro Music, and I'll link his website in. I found his website after I started Googling to learn more about synthesizers, because I was a bit disappointed in the Arduino website. It threw a couple of example programs at you, but didn't really explain them, and it didn't really, didn't give enough information, I think, to make good use of this if you've never worked with synthesizers before and generated music electronically before. You kind of left with a couple of programs and not a lot of knowledge. So a little disappointed in the fact that they put so much effort into the construction, which was fantastic. I just wish they would have put a little more effort into what can you do with it after you're done and give you a little more instruction. So I'll link to this site that I found that really helped me learn more about what I could do with what I have here. And in the 4th episode in this series, I'm going to go through some of the things I learned from that person and their website, and show what else we might be able to do with that. And that includes being able to connect other things in to this whole setup, some LEDs perhaps, maybe, maybe we want to connect in a display. So we want access to these pins. Well, now you might say, well, it's too late for you, Lori. You've already used these, and now when you put that on, you can't connect it. So that person recommended a shield that I could sandwich in between these two from Adafruit, that then gives me access to the pins, because it kind of sticks some connectors out on the side. And so I have that on order, and I'm really looking forward to implementing some projects that have other things connected, like even just some LEDs would be fun to flash, to the beat of the music and that sort of thing. So that'll be coming soon, and it's at the Adafruit Shield is a bit of a kit, so I'll solder that in the 4th episode, and then show how to do some fundamentals with this kit, and maybe help all of us get more out of it. All right, so with that, we've got this together, and I'm just going to attach it back on, and we'll use it in the basic format that Arduino had intended. I'm not going to use this case here. Once you have it all together, you could put it in, and you'll take these knobs off, and you would take that off, and you'd put that on and remount them, and you'd have a little case. But I want to have access to all of this, so I'm not going to use this case. And especially once I put that extra shield in, I'm definitely not going to be using that case. I'm going to have access to these pins. So this is the basic way I'm going to use it going forward. The next step then is to use our synthesizer with the example program and have some fun. Well, it's finally time to use our synthesizer. So the code I have up on the screen now is code that was provided on the Arduino site to test the Synth Shield, and I found it was pretty difficult to follow, and some of that may be because it's been a while since I've done a lot of Arduino programming, and I never really mastered it. So I'm not that great at Arduino code, and I just found that there were comments, so that was helpful. Sometimes you get a bunch of code that has no comments at all. So there were comments, but I like to add lots of comments to my code so that I can make sure I really understand how it works. So I won't say that I'm 100% comfortable with how this works yet, but I think I've got the gist of it, and I added a lot of comments. So this will be in my GitHub site. That'll be linked in the episode so that you can take a look at it. as I definitely did some revision to it. It also had a whole bunch of code for LEDs. Like I said, I don't think it was written for our Make Your Uno kit. It had LEDs in it, and there's no way to have LEDs in our kit. So I took all that part of it out because it was just confusing me and in the way of trying to figure out how the rest of the code worked. So I took all that out. And then I had to remember how tones were done in Arduino code. So I just kind of clipped that out from the reference to remind myself how tones work. And then there's the no tone function to kind of turn it off. And so that's how you do that. So that was something I didn't remember. So anyways, you set up a lot of, whoever wrote this, set up a lot of variables to handle the tempo. And then they built in a counter that I think kind of works like a delay to, have the notes go faster or slower. You think the tempo might be doing it. That's just the value that's read from the tempo potentiometer. So the counter is kind of what actually keeps the speed, as it said. It said used for speed, but that's what it does. And I think I figured out how that works. And then you can set how low a frequency you'll be able to play and how high a frequency. And then it says here pattern, and I guess that's because this is called a 4-steps sequencer. We'll be able to play 4 notes in a row, and I guess that's the pattern, beep, 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 beep. And they can have different tones based on how we turn the dials here. So I think that's where pattern came from. But for me, it's really just the current potentiometer that we're getting the note from. We kind of loop through them a lot. And then we actually get the note from the potentiometer readings. So there's a little function that was written called getNote that looks at whatever potentiometer is currently being examined. And then it will read the one that's being examined at the time, and then return that frequency. So you can see it's just mapping from each of the 4 analog reads. So you might notice that I've written on my on mine 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the analog pins. So the A0, the A1, A2, A3. So that's how you know which ones are connected for this program. All right, and don't need any voids set up. There's nothing to set up because I took the LED stuff out of it. So it enters the main loop here, and the first thing it does is it reads the tempo. So that's controlled by 4, the bottom one here, and it maps the tempo. Now, interestingly enough, it kind of reverses it. So the higher the value, kind of the slower this is going to go. And you'll see that has to do with how the counter is used to control the speed. So when we turn the speed lower, we're going to get a higher number. And when we turn it the other way, we're going to get a smaller number. And that's going to make it go faster. And then as long as we're in a speed that is good, then we're going to get notes from all 4 potentiometers, unless we have one of the potentiometers turned all the way down so that it's below the lowest frequency. Then it won't play anything for that potentiometer. So it's a 4-note sequencer, but you could play just 1 note, 2 notes, 3, or 4, depending on whether you have the potentiometer set above the lowest frequency. And you'll see as we demo it kind of how it works. And then here's where this counter kind of builds in this delay. So if the counter is greater than the tempo, then we're going to kind of turn off the tone and reset the counter. All right. And then we're going to go get the next note. And this is kind of how we advance through the potentiometers, all 4. And you can see we modulo 4 of them so that we always have a number 0, 1, 2, or 3. And again, if we have a value above, if the note we get back is a value above the lowest frequency plus 10, then we're going to put that on the speaker. And then you keep kind of going around and around, but you advance this counter by 1 each time. And so that means that when we want to go slower, as you can see, it's the counter, it'll take longer for the counter to get above the tempo, right? I think that makes sense. It goes backwards. It's very hard to think about. So I hope that makes some sense. I had to look at this a lot. So anyways, and then if the tempo is above 390, that means we're really slow. So we got to turn all the way over, and we're only going to get a note from one of the potentiometers, and you can actually kind of make it move around the potentiometers, which one's actually playing, and it'll just play that one to the screen. But if we're below the lowest frequency, then it'll turn it off, and then we won't have any sound at all. In fact, you can power it up right now, and we're not hearing anything because I have the volume down, but I also have all 4 of those set below the lowest frequency. All right, so it's really not a long program. There's a lot of my comments in it. But I guess we really just need to hear this thing work. And you can kind of figure it out just from playing with it. But it was interesting to kind of look at how somebody coded this. When I think about it, if I was going to do this, I'm pretty sure I would have done it in an entirely different way. It would not have occurred to me to use that counter that way. So I found it very interesting, and it's worth a study. Maybe that's a very efficient way. I'm not sure. But now let's turn it on and give it a good demo. Okay, I'm kind of set up over here to show off the synth board and made it a little bit bigger on the screen. Kind of checking it in my monitor. Hopefully, I'll keep it in view. And it can get really loud, so bear with me if I mess up with the volume. All right, so it should be running, so I'm going to turn up the volume a little bit. And then I'll turn on one, so these are our 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in order. Let's turn on the first one to a low note. And I have the tempo very low. So now I've turned it up to a little bit faster a tempo. So now that counter is kind of clicking through, and you can hear it's beeping the one note. So it's just this one. All the others are turned down. I might turn that down just a little bit. It's very sensitive. There we go. And then let's add a second note into the sequence. And I'll make it higher. And this is not very melodic. So now we're going bum 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 bum. Okay, so now we'll add the next note in. I'll make it higher than that one. All right, now let's put another note in, the last one in the... Not really very pretty. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. And then let's change the tempo and make it go a little faster. And then I think you can go kind of crazy. And that's getting a little more fun. And yeah, so that's how that goes. And then if I take it all the way down, notice I end up on one of the notes. Remember we talked about that, and that's that other part of that if statement. It ends up on one note. It's really a piercing note, isn't it? And then if I take the volume up at all, the tempo up at all, then we get all 4 notes again. If I don't want a note, then I can take one out of the sequence. So that's how that works. It's fun to play with. It's very hard to get something that sounds pleasing. I think you just can't necessarily pick 4 notes by twirling a potentiometer so that you get something that gives a nice chord or a good sound together. I'm not very musical, so I don't know what the right words are for that. But yeah, it's hard to get a pleasing sound with that kind of a this way of controlling it. But well, it is pretty cool to see how it works. Well, I think that's where we'll end this episode. And in the next episode, I'm going to go through some much simpler code to just kind of build up our skills in playing around with electronic music a little bit and seeing what else we can do with the synthesizer, and maybe starting from basic steps rather than something quite as complicated as this test program was. So with that, I'll thank you for joining me on this journey in adventures in soldering. And as always, thank you for watching.